What's going on, everybody? Nick Costa here, and welcome to this video lesson on the Single Paradiddle-Diddle. This is the final iteration of the core paradiddle rudiments from the Percussive Art Society. If you've been following the Drum Essentials section of my website, this is video number 7. So in this video, you are going to learn how to play the paradiddle-diddle, how to incorporate it into your playing, as well as some examples on how to incorporate it into your drum set playing. I'm excited to get into this with all of you, so let's get started. So if you've been following the Drum Essentials series on my website, you are already familiar with the single paradiddle, the double paradiddle, and the triple paradiddle. Unlike the single, double, and triple paradiddle where you add a para to the beginning, the paradiddle-diddle, you add an additional diddle to the end. So with that being said, take a single paradiddle, add an additional diddle at the end of it with the opposite hand, and you can now play a paradiddle-diddle. So that means that if you were to start this with your right hand, you now have right, left, left, left. If you were to start with your left hand, it is left, right, right. Just like all of the other paradiddle rudiments, you might get caught up if you're trying to say which hand you're supposed to play. So with the paradiddle-diddle, just say the name of the rudiment. Paradiddle-diddle. So for this first exercise, you are going to play a single paradiddle-diddle in an eighth note subdivision. You're going to play a right-handed single paradiddle-diddle, one beat rest, and then a left-handed single paradiddle-diddle, followed by another beat of rest. I'm going to set the click at 80 BPM. Play along with me. 1, 2, ready, and. Now, unlike all of the other paradiddle rudiments, with the paradiddle-diddle, whatever hand that you start with, you continue to start with. Unless, of course, you rest somewhere in between or play an additional sticking pattern that allows you to start with the opposite hand. So for exercise number 2, what you are going to do is continue to play the paradiddle-diddle in an eighth note subdivision, but you're going to play 4 in a row. So you're going to start out by playing 4 right-handed paradiddle-diddles, give yourself 4 beats of rest, then you are going to play 4 left-handed paradiddle-diddles in a row. You're going to give yourself another additional 4 beats of rest, so you can start it over again with the right hand. Clicks going back on, play along with me. 1, 2, ready, and. Moving on to exercise number 3. You are now going to play the paradiddle-diddle in a 16th note subdivision. So you are going to start off with a right-handed paradiddle-diddle. You will then rest for the remainder of the measure. You are then going to play a left-handed paradiddle-diddle and rest for the remainder of that measure. Clicks going back on, play along with me. 1, 2, ready, and. Now, with exercise number 4, you are going to continue to play the paradiddle-diddle in a 16th note subdivision. The difference this time is that you're only going to give yourself an 8th note rest in between each time you play the paradiddle-diddle. So for this first measure, you are going to play a right-handed paradiddle-diddle, give yourself an 8th note rest, and then play that right-handed paradiddle-diddle again. Second measure, you're starting off with the left hand. So a left-handed paradiddle-diddle, 8th note rest, left-handed paradiddle-diddle again, another 8th note rest. Let's try it together. 1, 2, ready, and. So now that you are getting more comfortable with this, let's see if we can play that paradiddle-diddle multiple times in a row. So with exercise number 5, you are playing the rhythm of 1, 2E enda, 3E enda, 4E enda. For that first measure, you are going to play a left-handed tap followed by 2 right-handed paradiddle-diddles. For the second measure, you will then play a right-handed tap followed by 2 left-handed paradiddle-diddles. Let's try that exercise together. 1, 2, ready, and. So now that you are getting more comfortable playing the paradiddle-diddle in a 16th note subdivision back to back, let's try an exercise where we can play a few more in a row together. So with exercise number 6, you are going to play 5 paradiddle-diddles in a row. So since you are playing them in a 16th note subdivision, that means that they are going to be spread across 2 measures, but you'll have an 8th note rest at the end, which allows you to reset and start with the opposite hand the next time. So start out by playing 5 right-handed paradiddle-diddles in a row. You will have an 8th note rest at the end of that second measure. So that means starting with the third measure, you will play left-handed paradiddle-diddles. After you play through those 5 in a row, you'll have an additional 8th note rest at the end of the 4th measure, so you can reset and start the whole exercise over. Clicks going back on, let's try it together. 1, 2, ready, and. So moving on to exercise number 7, let's take our practice one step further. Instead of having a rest to reset, let's come up with a sticking pattern that allows us to naturally switch over to starting with the opposite hand. So this is one of my favorite exercises where you play 2 paradiddle-diddles in a row, followed by a single paradiddle. That means for this first measure, you're going to play 2 right-handed paradiddle-diddles in a row, followed by a single paradiddle. That will naturally have you start with the left hand for the second measure. Repeat that same pattern of 2 left-handed paradiddle-diddles, followed by a single paradiddle, so you can reset again to start with the right hand to restart the whole exercise. Let's turn the click back on, let's play it together. 1, 2, ready, and. Now that you have played through those 7 exercises, this is a perfect time in the lesson to pause the video. You want to make sure that you're getting this sticking pattern nice and consistent, whether that's right, left, 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 or left, right, right. You want to make sure that your sticking pattern is nice and consistent, and that accent is louder than the rest of the notes in the rudiment. So pause the video here and work on that. Once you have it down and it's consistent, hit continue. Okay, so now it's time for our challenge. Just like all of the other challenges, you are now going to play through a series of measures that allows you to incorporate all of the other rudiments that we have gone over so far. Just like all of the other challenges, you are going to play a specific rhythm that allows you to start it with both your right and your left hand. You then move on to a new rhythm and do the same process. So in this challenge, we have 10 measures. For those first 2 measures, you are playing the rhythm 1E enda, 2E end, 3 and 4. For the 16th notes in the beginning of the measure, you are going to play a paradiddle-diddle 1E enda, 2E, followed by a right-handed tap. For beats 3 and 4, you're going to alternate between a left-handed flam, a right-handed flam, and another left-handed flam. The second measure is the same thing, but you start with a left-handed paradiddle-diddle, followed by a left-handed tap. Then for 3 and 4, you have a right-handed flam, left-handed flam, right-handed flam. Here's what it sounds like. 1E enda, 2E end, 3 and 4. 1 E and a 2 E and 3 and 4. Now for measures 3 through 6, you are actually playing a 2-bar loop. You are playing 16th notes throughout all of those measures. The difference this time is that you are alternating back and forth between paradiddle-diddles and single paradiddles. So starting on the 3rd measure, you are going to play a right-handed paradiddle-diddle followed by a right-handed single paradiddle. You will then play a left-handed paradiddle-diddle followed by a left-handed single paradiddle. You then play another right-handed paradiddle-diddle followed by a right-handed single paradiddle. You then have 2 additional 16th notes, which you'll just play with a left and a right. Here's what those 2 measures sound like. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Now measures 5 and 6, it's the same pattern, but now you're starting with your left hand. So you now have a left-handed paradiddle-diddle followed by a left-handed single paradiddle. You then play a right-handed paradiddle-diddle followed by a right-handed single paradiddle. You go back to playing a left-handed paradiddle-diddle followed by a left-handed single paradiddle, and then those 2 extra 16th notes are just a right and a left hand. Here's what those 2 measures sound like. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Now measures 7 through 10, you are continuing to play a 2-bar loop. You are also continuing to play 16th notes throughout all of those measures. So starting at measure 7, you are going to play a right-handed paradiddle-diddle followed by a right-handed double paradiddle. You then play a left-handed paradiddle-diddle followed by a left-handed double paradiddle. You then play a single right-handed paradiddle followed by left, right, left, right. Here's what measure 7 and 8 sound like. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Notice at the end of that 8th measure, you now can start that same pattern but with the left hand on measure 9. So again, you are going to play a left-handed paradiddle-diddle followed by a left-handed double paradiddle. You then play a right-handed paradiddle-diddle followed by a right-handed double paradiddle. You then play a left-handed single paradiddle followed by right, left, right, left. Here's what measures 9 and 10 sound like. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. This is a great exercise at the end to differentiate between a paradiddle-diddle and a double paradiddle. Although they might sound the same, the sticking is different. So now that you have gone through all of the different parts, let's piece it all together. But this is a challenge, right? So let's up that metronome to 140 BPM and give it a shot. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, and... 165, why not? Here we go. 1, 2, ready, and... So now that you have played through all of those exercises and the challenge, now let's work on incorporating it in your drum set playing. So you want to think about ways that you can play the paradiddle-diddle as part of your groove, or maybe even a drum fill. This is the part of the lesson where you improve upon your improvisational and musicianship skills. Now, although I want you to be creative and come up with your own, here are a few examples just to get you started. So to recap, in this lesson, you learned how to play the paradiddle-diddle. You started out by playing it just by itself. You then incorporated it into your playing with a few exercises. And then finally, you saw some examples on how to incorporate it into your drum set playing. If you liked this lesson, please make sure that you check out that Drum Essentials section of my website where you can see additional lessons just like this on all 40 of the drum rudiments from Percussive Art Society. There are some additional lessons as well, including technique fundamentals and drum set fundamentals. And that is it. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Hopefully you learned something from it. And until next time, see you later.